Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Lebner. I was the Australian Institute of Architects 2020 National Emerging Architect Prize winner. And the video that precedes this is a video that was put together by the Institute, sponsored by AWS. It's a little 7-minute clip about my background and my practice, and it's intended that you watch that before you watch this presentation. So there's going to be a link below to see that if you haven't already checked that out, and then come back and jump into this presentation. As you'll notice from the presentation, I was heavily pregnant when we filmed that, and it was also sort of in the middle of COVID. So due to having a newborn and a lot of COVID restrictions, I did the national tour mostly virtually, and there was caps on people that could attend everywhere. So it was really important to me to try and capture a recorded version of the presentation tonight so that more people can hopefully access it. I'm presenting this live tonight to members of the Architect Project, which you'll hear about later on, just so that I'm not completely talking to myself alone in my studio. So let's jump into that. I'll just get my screen share going over to this one. Okay, there we go. So yeah, pulling all of this together was a bit of a challenge during COVID and having a newborn. So hopefully it all makes sense. I think it does. It was absolutely a thrill to go around Australia and talk to the most ambitious and proactive graduates and students. And it was a privilege that really hung over me. I probably didn't share the same kinds of extraordinary designs, perhaps, that winners from the past have been able to share, but hopefully I can share some extraordinary ideas about somewhat ordinary architecture and practice. So as I take you through some select works of my career, I've tried to pull out 10 key ideas in the hope that they can be a catalyst for change or inspiration in your own career. So I work for a company called Lighthouse Architecture and Science. I was originally hired as a graduate to develop their modular design system, and I'm going to focus on sharing that system and its progress with you today. This is us in 2015, when a major restructure of our firm to its current format saw our original architecture director, Andy Very, step away to further pursue life as a builder, which created the incredible opportunity for me to become principal architect under the directorship of building scientist Jenny Edwards. And this is us today. So Jenny, the building scientist, owns and runs the business. She leads the science team and runs all the operations, forecasting, marketing, client onboarding, etc. While my focus is the architecture team, our processes and our projects. So to spell it out, we are an architecture firm run by a non-architect, and as in other industries that are perhaps more open to such ideas, it works brilliantly. I also have no hesitation in pointing out that this model is why I'm able to do what I do within just 3 days a week in the office when I'm not on maternity leave. We offer a range of services from a more traditional architecture service right through to the science team doing retrofit only advice. But as I mentioned, I'm going to focus on our modular system today because it's really grown into my work baby. And I think it presents ideas that I think are worthy of your time today and perhaps a little bit more interesting and unique to share. So the first point of those 10 is that innovation without great contextual understanding really irritates me. In those early days as a graduate, I did ghost research with project home companies. So I went along to their displays and I got their pricing, and we compared this to our own inclusions and costings. We worked out how to compare like for like, which meant excluding a lot of what architects would normally include by default, but project home companies don't. And we incrementally tested the best bang for buck steps to get a house to 8 stars EER. Similarly, we studied things like the floor area efficiency of project homes, their floor to glazing ratios, etc. And in a nutshell, by saving on space and resources with space efficient design and flexible use spaces, we could achieve an 8-star family home that would price competitively with a similar purpose family project home. But we didn't really want to create a directly comparative product. That wasn't the goal. So idea number 2 is that we can learn so much from other industries in regards to service and product delivery. So by and large, most architects have been working the same way for decades. And the idea that I was focused on, which is a pretty simple one, is that modular design was a new process, not necessarily a new product. The other ideas from other industries were to create something consistent so that people can more easily understand exactly what they're getting, and to provide simplified choices. So, choices within strict limits so that clients still feel empowered and able to customize their home, but really in a pared back, non overwhelming way. Number 3, so this is the core idea, and that was to simplify the design process. So pre-designed room modules fit together in various configurations to suit the site, orientation, client, brief, and budget. And I'll just stress here that it's modular design, not modular construction. It's not prefab. So things that need to be customized still, like windows, roof form, materials, landscape, still are. There's roughly 5 kitchen types, 5 wet area types, and then realistically 2 main sizes of living and sleeping space that connect in with them. This has been quite successful for a lot of reasons. So we save time in the design and documentation process, so it's quicker and more affordable. We save space because we're really confident in the sizing of those modules, and we can also show clients finished versions, which repeatedly changes their mind and instills confidence about how big they think something needs to be. And something we hadn't considered was the improved time and accuracy during construction as the builders became more and more familiar with modules that they had done before. And we work with a range of builders. Number 4, similarly, some specification choices are fixed. So things like steel fascias or hot water system type are locked in for modular unless there's a really good reason to change them. While other items that clients tend to care more about personalizing or that we want to play with in order to pull together an appropriate design response, these items still allow various choices, but they are limited. So these choices usually have an average of 3 options labeled basic, standard, or upgrade. And we then feed these terms back into our costing range spreadsheet so that clients can make choices as they can be empowered to understand. Sorry, I'll say that again. So that as clients make choices, they should be empowered to understand where they are moving the needle to the higher or lower end of that price range. So projects are still customized and coordinated, but without the overwhelming choice and completely unknown costs. A big benefit of the consistency of our modular projects is that we are fairly confident on how much they will cost compared to, say, renovations or bigger budget custom jobs that just have so much variability. A surprise benefit is also that these limits do keep our design team in check a little bit. It's like we have our own little restrained palette to work within, which is quite powerful. So we've simplified the design and we've simplified the specification and subsequently the cost estimate. And the third part is to simplify the science. So I had feared that working with scientists would limit my design autonomy or blinker my own learning, but it's really only empowered both of these things. We rely heavily on the NatHERS modelling to both optimise our designs right from the concept stage, but also to produce room by room ratings and energy use graphs to help clients understand how their home will perform and to help the clients and our design team make informed decisions. So by no means does science trump design. We're very upfront about these tools being just that. They're tools that inform holistic and critical design thinking. I also wanted to note that the science team use the software in reference to our construction costing database so that we really have a good grasp on what the best bang for buck is. And that's allowed us to achieve excellent energy efficiency for our climate using standard construction techniques. We also air leakage test and thermal image the finished home to check the effectiveness of construction and for our own feedback. And we have data loggers in many of our finished builds to track the real lived performance. So I popped the address for our journal in there, and I'll pop it in the notes of this YouTube video as well. It shares a wealth of information on findings in that space, and they're often published in Sanctuary magazine as well. Number 6, I think as a group, architects can still be fairly poor at communicating with the broader public. And there's a brilliant book by Flora Samuel on this called Why Architects Matter. And she talks about how we can better evidence what we do. And I'd highly recommend checking that one out. So in our modular process, we try to improve communication by providing quantitative evidence on not just the science, but we can also better quantify design by talking about things like comparative northern glazing areas or flexible use space, and using really clear everyday language. So for example, our core design principles, which were derived from a community workshop, are light, warmth, connection to the outdoors, and great social spaces. We also communicate the finished result by showing modular clients those finished examples of homes that are similar to their own brief and budget. And we run the whole process through an online project management tool that has preloaded information about all aspects of the project, from consultants to selections, so that clients can be educated by us, but in their own time. Building on communication, as architects, we need to really purposefully evidence what we do. So our work at Lighthouse, we aim for at least 7.5 stars EER, stressing that ratings are climate specific. So if we model our homes in Sydney or Brisbane, they often achieve 9.5 stars. Not that we would ever design and specify the same way for those different climates. We combine this with aiming for an air leakage rating of 3 to 8 air changes per hour at the test pressure of 50 pascals. So to put that into context, if you're not familiar with the terminology, that's compared to average Canberra homes being 15 to 20. And at the other end of the spectrum, passive house certified projects, which you might have heard of, they are less than 0.6. We achieve these results we achieve that 3 to 8 using close to standard construction techniques. So while you're right in thinking that we do share similar key philosophies to the passive house approach, we've really developed and repeatedly tested our own sweet spot, which we found based on balancing performance, budget, and buildability. Again, I've popped a link down the bottom there, and I'll pop it in the notes for this video, where you can read one of our articles that further explains the comparison between the different approaches and the lived results of what we've found with this sort of sweet spot. The operational energy of our homes is usually around 3,000 to 8,000 kilowatt hour mark for the year, often neutralised by PV generation, and this compares to an average Canberra household of 19,000 kilowatt hours. And the embodied energy, we're just starting to get more into calculating this, but based purely on floor area, we already know that our homes are 35 to 50% smaller than average new Canberra homes. 8 is pretty simple. We need to share our results as architects. So not too long ago, it was seen as sort of dirty to promote your work to the public, which is just so backwards. How can we expect the public and the industry to expect better, to ask for better, and to know how to do better if we don't share better examples with them? So in addition to maintaining our journal on our website, we also get involved wherever we can with open house days, industry events, publications, university tutoring, etc. And I can't stress enough that while talking about this together in this presentation might sound like we have it really together and everything's really organized and polished, I promise you it's not. Nothing we do is perfect. like everyone else, we have a to-do list a mile long, bugs that we want to fix, things that slide. Life happens, and we're all just trying to get by the best that we can. So one of my final messages is to just have a go and have fun along the way. So it's been a while since we counted, but we're probably getting close to 40 modular projects completed. We try to learn from every one of them, and at the moment they're probably a bit more than a quarter of our project load, alongside renovations, science retrofits, and bigger budget custom homes. These are just some images from our modular projects, just to show you that they still have very much their own character and feel to suit the client and the site. And finally, I should talk about what I do on the side. So I've always been naturally drawn to teaching. For anyone who subscribes to the My Bigs personalities, I'm an ENFJ, which is the coach. I really wanted to be able to help more students and graduates than I could simply by lecturing or one-on-one mentoring. And I particularly wanted to improve the apprentice style model that we currently run for that part of our education between graduation and registration. It seems to me like a somewhat inefficient way of learning. So we're learning all of that practical on the job stuff really in isolation with just one firm and their approach, and often in a very slow burn of exposure. So I started off by writing this book, 101 Things I Didn't Learn in Architecture School and Wish I'd Known Before My First Job. And yes, it's purposefully a play on the opposite book. But despite what most people initially think, it's not necessarily a criticism of architecture school, but more of a directory to all of the little industry, construction, and practice knowledge points that you tend to learn on the job in those early years. And it's very affordable. You can pick up a copy for $28. I will also put the link for that in the video. Writing the book was really a first step for me. Starting with an online platform that I run called myfirstarchitecturejob.com, which shares tips and resources for young Australian architects, primarily via Instagram. And doing this hugely reaffirmed that there was a thirst for this kind of knowledge and probably a better way to learn it. So I built an online membership community called the Architect Project. We currently have about 70 ambitious students and graduates in there. And while there are many features like networking and community discussion and little weekly challenges to keep you developing, the key value is that we run these quarterly themes that you can see there. And we have fortnightly industry guests that do a live session with members on that topic. So at the moment, we're in the collaborate quarter, and we just had the practice quarter, and in the practice quarter we had Warwick Mahaley talking about fees and client architect agreements. We had someone from Planned Cover talk about liability and insurance. We had Kate from Whispering Smith come to talk about innovative firm structure and modes of practice as example. And the address is there. If you want to come check it out with a free 2-week trial, you can come in and do. So I hope you've enjoyed some of these ideas behind why and how I'm trying to create little shifts of change. And I'd really like to ask each of you what you can see that you would like to change. So please consider this, and you can see what some of the attendees from the tour that I did thought. I asked all of the attendees as we went around to write down their ideas, and that's been listed as an article on the website called Dear Architects. I'll list that one in. But yeah, thanks for checking this out, and I hope you'll enjoy some of the further resources listed below. Thank you. Okay, guys, I'll come back.